Yes, so sustainability, yes, so it's based, yes, so in three, yes, so main pillars. Those pillars, yes, so represent the framework for balancing different needs in order to create, yes, so a sustainable future. You can find the environmental sustainability that, yeah, so it refers to the natural environment to meet the present and the future needs. Then you have the social sustainability that focus in maintaining and improving, yeah, so the well-being of the society. It's try to ensure, yes, social equality and access to resources, like, for example, healthcare and education and fair treatment of individuals. Then you can you have the economic sustainability, and so it addresses the long-term viability of the economic systems. And yes, so it relates to the possibility of growing the economical system, but without, yes, so doing any harm to the environment or to the society. And all the three pillars needs to combine in order to have a sustainable, yes, so future. Yes, as you can see, yes, so there are some planetary boundaries that we have not to cross. These planetary boundaries, yes, so regulate the stability and the resilience of the Earth. And yes, so those refers to the limits, yes, so of the planet Earth within which humanity can continue to develop and, yes, so to thrive for generations to come. There are, or by scientists have been defined 9 boundaries. Unfortunately, yes, so we already have crossed 6 of them. That means that, yes, so, that means that right now we are, yes, so we are in danger that we cannot recover all the resources that the planet can provide us. Just for you to have, yes, so an idea what that means, yes, so you can see here, yes, so for the different countries in the world, yes, so when exactly in the year 2022 they reach or they use all the resources that the planet can provide or can recover. If you can see, for example, for Germany, Germany already at the beginning of May had already used all the resources that the planet can provide. That means if you like, for example, in the US, you need to have the resources of 5 planets just to live in this country. Or in Germany, you need, for example, the resources of 3 planets. That means that, so we need to change the way that we are living, the way that we are producing. And for that, so the United Nations has claimed, so different sustainable development goals with the objectives to have an improvement in the economy, a growth in the economy, to keep, human well-being, but without, harming the natural resources. For that, there have been developed, so these circular economy systems that try to keep, the resources working. And so it is important that, there is a systematic intervention, not only from part of the common people, but also from the policymakers, from the school, from the education systems, and of course, so from the different companies and the economic system. Just for talking about this topic, today we have 2 referents today that going to talk about this topic. So Josefina Cura from Argentina and Melanie Kuhn from Boston in the United States. And I would like to introduce them. Yeah, so briefly, so I can give them later, yeah, so time for explaining and for talking about this amazing topic. Yes, Josefina will talk also in the first place. She is materials engineer, and she also has a master's degree in circular economy and environmental management in business. She had made also a lot of training in carbon footprint calculations, water footprint, and she is now also expert in sustainability and in circular economy. She is director of the Sustainability and Circular Economy area at EIG Engineering Consulting. And now she's expanding, yeah, so this consultancy to new markets in the United States. And yeah, so she would like to inspire students and professionals to embark in this journey towards a more sustainable future. Yeah, so her talk today, it's called the Digital Circular Economy, your passport to embark on the journey towards sustainability. And yeah, so this presentation will explore how the circular economy serves as a passport for business, yeah, so providing the tools and strategies needed to reduce waste, enhance resource efficiency, and foster, yeah, innovations. Afterwards, yes, Melanie Kuhn is going to give us a talk. She is yes, alumna, yes, from one of our programs, the AGM. She also performed her PhD in material science and engineering at the École Polytechnique in Montreal, in Canada. Then she had also a postdoc time where so at the in Japan and at the MIT in Boston, where she studied physical chemical properties of materials for use in the fuel cells. Then she worked close to 10 years in technical materials and manufacturing in a company, Saint-Gobain. She also worked with some hydrogen technology, so trying to provide sustainable solutions in this field. After that, she was very interested in all sustainability and ESG topics, where she learned and make experience in carbon footprint and life cycles assessment. And now she works as a consultant at Anthesis. Her talk is called Regulatory and Practical Considerations for a Transition to a Circular Economy. So I welcome you for this talk. And to the participants, I would like to let you know that if you have some questions in between the talks, you can write them directly on the chat, and we can discuss them at the end of the presentations. So thank you, and so please, Josefina, I will stop sharing the screen. Okay. I cannot see my full screen. There. Yeah. Now.
Okay. Do you see my presentation?
Yes, perfect. And we hear you very well.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Agustina and Flavio, for your introduction and presentation. And thank you for all of you for being here today, and I hope you to enjoy it. I can change, let me see here. Okay. Today I would like to circular economy as a passport towards sustainability. I will be talking about regulatory and framework financial framework that is very important to achieve sustainability and circular economy. We are talking about briefly with challenges and opportunities we have applying circular economy. And I'm going to show you 2 success stories that represent our work in circular economy. Briefly, I would like to quickly introduce my company. I'm a co-founder together with my 3 other partners. The company is A&G Engineering Consulting. It's a consulting and advisory service company specializing in offering integral solutions to organizations. We have focus on sustainability and circular economy, process improvement and standard implementations, occupational health and safety, and research and development engineering. Our head office is in Argentina, and we are in a process of expanding to the US, specifically to the state of Florida. And in the US, A&G is a member of the Argentine American Chamber of Commerce in Florida, and we coordinate the sustainability committee of this chamber. Implementing the circular economy is a fundamental change in our current paradigm. Every day we hear about the effect of the climate change, the depletion of natural capitals, the poverty, the hunger, and so on. And all of these are consequent of our current linear economic model. Basically, a degradation model where resources from make product, use them, and when we no longer need them, we throw away. And you can see that this is unsustainable, despite this has led to an incredible economic growth since the Industrial Revolution, but we can't continue to do this anymore. So when we talk about the circular economy, we are talking about regeneration. We make products, we use them, we reuse or recycle, for example, and so on. Basically, we keep resources and energy inside the system as long as possible, protecting not only our natural capital, as I mentioned, but also people and profit. So we need to start working on this change, not only at a local level, but also at a global level. So that is why I think that the financials and legal framework are one of the key partners of this journey towards sustainability. So now we are going to see the regulatory and financial frameworks that are enablers to the circular economy and sustainability and key partners. On one hand, organizations must be conscious about the impact resulting by their activities, and on the other hand, they need to have a regulatory framework and a financial framework to support their sustainable development, minimizing their negative and social environmental impact. And now we are going to compare the mandatory regulations, the public policies, and the non-mandatory related to the circular economy in Argentina and in the state of Florida specifically. When we compare mandatory regulations, we can see that both have a different approach that reflects their local priorities and the legislative's capabilities. In Argentina, for example, mandatory legislations around the circular economy and sustainability is developing more slowly. But there are key laws and regulations that are driving this change. Some examples are here: the General Environmental Law, the Integrated Human Solid Waste Law, the Renewable Energy Law, and the Environmental Certifications Obligations. And in the state of Florida, mandatory regulations are related to circular economy and sustainability, focus primarily on waste management, energy efficiency, and emission reduction. Some examples of these are the Florida Solid Waste Management Act, the Solar Energy and Energy Efficiency Act, the Single-Use Plastic Ban, and the Resilience and Climate Change. And if we compare between Florida and Argentina, we can see that both related to implementation and compliance, for example, Argentina has robust law at national level, but the implementation and the enforcement vary if we are in a province or in a municipality. And while in Florida, the thing is different. The enforcement is stricter. They have state and local programs that are continuously monitoring the compliance of the law. And the cities have a greater autonomy to impose additional regulations that see later. If we analyze the circular economy approach, in Argentina, circular economy is not yet fully integrated into a mandatory legislative framework, but it has made progress in renewable energy and in waste management. And in Florida, they have begun integrating the circular economy principles in the waste reduction and in the banning of certain plastics. And they have focused in energy efficiency and emission reductions. And related to renewable energy, both has significant mandatory regulations to increase the use of renewable energy. In Florida, they have focused on using clean technologies in new construction and in government buildings, while in Argentina, we promote the investment in renewables. If we compare public policies around circular economy and sustainability, both has a different approach, and the public policies are adapted to the local realities and needs. So if we analyze renewable energy law, they encourage investment in clean energies like solar or wind. Related to solid waste law, they promote the recycling, the waste reduction, the composting. And related to circular economy project, for example, in Buenos Aires, is a province of Argentina. They include incentive for companies that reduce resources and use and promote recycling. And related to the general environmental law, they promote the adoption of clean technologies and the waste minimization. So this is the general public policies here in Argentina, while in the state of Florida, related to the climate change and resilience initiative, they have local government development related to this climate change and resilience plans, because the problems they had in that state. And they have another program, the Miami-Dade County Climate Action Strategy. So we can see that there are local public policies. And related to waste management and circular economy, they have a huge problems with management. They have the Solid Waste Management Act and voluntary certifications for business that we are going to see right now. And they have also incentive for renewable energy and sustainability. They offer tax incentives and credits for business that installs panels or has energy efficient technology. If we compare the public policies related, for example, to climate change and climate resilience, and adaptation, In Argentina, the priority is the use of renewable energy and waste management because the law set clear target for emission reduction and the adoption of clean technologies. And in Florida, they have focused in climate change resilience to protect the coastal infrastructure. This is a big problem for them, and encourage renewable energy and energy efficiency. And related to circular economy and waste management, we have, in Argentina, we have laws that are national driving, but their implementation and success vary if we talk different municipalities or the province. We do not have a global improvement. And we have no concrete regulations to drive the circular economy, as I mentioned, at a country level. While in Florida, it has advanced in circular economy initiatives at local level. They have mandatory recycling programs and bans on single-use plastic products in cities like Tampa, Coral Gables, and others. But they do not have an unified state-wide strategy. And finally, related to economic incentive, both use economic incentive to motivate the adoption of sustainable practices or circular economy strategies. In Florida, the economic incentives are tax. This is the most refrigeration of solar panels, and for example, and in Argentina, the incentives are primarily at companies that adopt renewable energy or clean technology. And finally, if we talk about non-mandatory regulations, in Argentina, these frameworks are less developed, and we only have voluntary initiatives. These initiatives emerged at a regional and municipal levels, as I mentioned before. Some examples in Buenos Aires, the circular economy law, it is a project, and a voluntary certification. We have one here in Mar del Plata, and the renewable energy law. And in the United States, the initiatives are mainly also voluntary, and the global initiatives are driven by the state, and then local programs adopted or developed by the cities. For example, the Green Lodging Program is a program from the Environmental Department of Florida, and taking into consideration this program, Miami-Dade County developed another, for example, the Climate Action Strategy, and Coral Gables developed the program, the Green Business Program. Coral Gables is a city of Miami-Dade County. Programs give a certification. This certification is like a public promotion, and the city gives economic incentives for example, for restaurants that want to adopt this or certify this program. Now I want to mention very briefly the three main challenges I think we have to overcome to achieve sustainability. One, I think that is the lack of regulation and support, the insufficient infrastructure, especially for the recycling materials, the reuse or the recovery, the deficiency in the collection system, in the technology, and I think one of the most important is the cultural and barrier, because companies are used to use a linear economic model, and shifting the mindset toward a circular approach can be difficult. And in addition, many consumers are not yet fully aware of benefit of circular economy, and this is affect the demand of sustainable products and service. I see here in Argentina and in the United States in Florida. But I also think that we have opportunities, and I think that the circular economy is an enabler for all of this. Innovation and creation of new business model is fundamental for this transition from a linear economic model to a circular economic model. This innovation and creation can be applied in new business model or adapting the existing one, thinking about renting, leasing, servitizing, or related to materials or products, thinking compostable, reusable, recyclable. I always have in mind the butterfly diagram of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and the circular supply chain. These are, I think, the two tools very important when we design, when we think and design strategies of circular economy. Another opportunity I see is regulation and incentive for investments. For example, more incentives and regulations and to improve the competitive of the process of the company or of any kind of organizations. This is very important to achieve the transformation from the linear economic model to a circular economic model. The sustainable economic model is very important because the circular economy decouples development from resources incentive consumption, and also circular economy creates new jobs. And something that I consider that it is very important are the impact investment. Investors analyze the business of the project and evaluate the economic, environmental, and social impacts. And then when the project clearly give an impact, the investment put the money in the business. So impact investment is directly related to achieve not only economic benefit, but also social and environmental benefit. And now, just to finish, I would like to show you two stories, success stories that we did here in A&G. One was the reducing waste and cost, transforming ink packaging for a sustainable future, and the story 2 is about building with purpose circular economy strategies in the construction of a frozen potato plant. The story 1, the context is that it's a company in Argentina that manufactures labels and outer packaging for tea bags and coffee. And they are facing high costs due to the amount of waste generated in their production chain. So this situation affects their profitability and the production issues due to the space required to sort the waste, the fire risk associated with the solvent basic ink, and so on. So we work in redesign part of the production process, starting with the raw materials and the type of packaging they were using. They were using packaging that that was between 1 and 1 kilogram for packaging. And applying the circular economy strategy, we can reduce the weight from 1.2 kilogram for unit to 0.2 kilogram for unit. And this is the bagging box. We work together with the ink suppliers, and we start replacing the solvent-based inks. We transform these inks to water-based ink. So we can achieve up to now, this project has 3 or 4 years. We replace up to now the 40% of water ink pigments. Nearly the 70% was replaced. The solvent based ink was replaced to water based ink. Because the waste generation, the special waste generation in an 80%, and 80% of reducing in the cost for the logistic and the management of this special waste generation. And we really achieve a process improvement, and also an important improvement in environmental health and safety in the facility. So the circular economy, as I mentioned here, solves environmental issues, improves working conditions, and create new economic opportunities. Sustainability can be a profitability business strategy, and sustainability must engage the entire switch, as we did with our suppliers of ink and that. And we had to be, there will be a collaborative effort to one more sustainable future. And this, I think, is the most important thing. We have to be collaborative if we want to achieve sustainability, and if we want to apply a circular economy, because this transformation involved several partners. And the second one was an American company that produced frozen potatoes with nearly 35 plants around the world. And they are currently building a new industrial plant here in Argentina. And A&G manage all the environmental health and safety system during the facility construction. And here our goal was to minimize the amount of waste sent to the landfill. So we developed a circular waste management plan. This is very new for our city, and we win an international award for this project. And here in this construction site, we reuse the materials within the site. Other materials we share among different contractors or donated for reuse or recycling outside the site. And the circular strategy was treating the waste not as a trash, but as a submaterial. So with this submaterial, we can achieve some different things that you see here. These are some of the projects. People build houses, people that are in problems, with economic problems, use this material to construct part of their houses. So they have a really impact, not only environmental impact, but also a social impact. Just to finish now, yes, just to finish. I think that, and I believe that the journey towards sustainability starts with small steps, but together we can move toward a future where economic growth aligned with environment and society. So I propose you to take closer look to your own organization, and regardless the size and the activity, identify opportunities where you can implement circular practices like reducing waste, reusing materials, or finding ways to be more efficient, or training people, employing people with disability, and so on. All are circular economy strategies, and this is an enabler for sustainability. And I think that each of us has a role to play in building a more sustainability future, and the action we take today surely can make a real difference for the generation to come. So thank you and have a great day.
Thank you very much, Josefina, for your very so interesting and motivating talk. And now I would like to so give space to Melanie Kuhn to give her talk, and at the end we will have so hopefully a nice discussion. Yes, please, Melanie.
Thank you, Agustina. Can everybody see my screen? Okay, perfect. Yeah, good morning, good afternoon. It's really nice to be here. And thank you again to Flavio and Agustina for inviting me today to speak about transitioning to a circular economy and looking at it from a practical lens, but also from a regulatory lens, with focus on the American side, but also on the EU side. So I'll start with a brief introduction about Anthesis. Anthesis is one of the leading pure play sustainability consulting firms. We are headquartered in the UK, but have over 1,300 sustainability experts in many offices across different countries around the globe. And we work with clients and customers across many different sectors, providing both advisory services, but also an array of digital solutions. We provide subject matter expertise and consulting services to our clients across many different areas, from traditional greenhouse gas emission accounting to climate risk assessments, ESG reporting, and nature-based solutions. And we also have a dedicated team of specialists focused on circularity and sustainable products, really looking at circular revenue models driving business transformation, but then also looking at the sustainability aspects at the product level, looking at it both from a product chemical sustainability, environmental impact point of view, but also from a circularity lens for reduction, reuse, and recyclability. With that, I want to start with a very brief introduction again to circularity. We've already heard the different concepts from Agustina and Josefina, so just want to re-emphasize here, what does circularity mean using the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's definition of circularity. Circularity or circular economy is an economic approach where we decouple the economic activity from the consumption of finite resources. And we're leveraging 3 design principles, that is eliminating waste and pollution, keeping products and materials in circulation, and regenerating nature's and the resources we have been using. And this can create different impact areas, from using less material, looking at redesigning products in the actual development phase, in the design phase, embedding durability, repairability, recyclability, but also thinking about shifting business models. And we'll look at a couple of different legislature and emerging regulations on how some of these aspects are going to be driven forward. Coming back to what we call more of a traditional client's sustainability journey, and Agustina already talked about it, and Josefina as well. It's looking at the 3 pillars of sustainability. We have people, planet, and profit. So it's not looking at sustainability only as a challenge, but also as an opportunity to actually create and drive business performance. So it's about coupling sustainability impact and commercial impact to drive and create sustainable performance. And circularity is really similar in that aspect as well. It's about business transformation on how we use resources away from our classic linear approach of take, make, waste to a circular approach. While there are different aspects that we want to consider in making that shift happen, I just want to emphasize 3 today and go a little bit deeper into those, starting with the transformation, the actual business transformation, then looking at waste and circularity concepts more from a product and manufacturing lens, and then talking a little bit more about regulations. With that, I want to start on the transformation side. So when we look at moving away from our business as usual, our classic linear approach, it's really taking the step back and rethinking how we do business. How do we shape our organizations? How do we shape business models? And rethinking and transforming these approaches. It's also about rethinking how we engage with our supply chains, how we can embed circularity and more sustainable practices in our supply chains and the way we work across the value chain as different organizations. And it's also that downstream piece of the value chain, that marketing, that outreach to consumers and customers to create awareness and that social, economic, and sustainable consciousness. And it's also about governance and managing risks, as these are all inherent to how we do business. So one way of thinking of this is for companies and organizations to experiment and pilot circular revenue models. And there could be different aspects or different models to that transition. So on the one side, it could be moving away from the traditional making a product, selling the product, and completely losing the ownership of it, but actually retaining the product ownership by shifting to a lease, rent, or product as a service model. So this would help keep the product in circulation, refurbish, maintain it to kind of extend its service life, but also make it available for different consumers to be used. And then we have the whole end-of-life consideration, which would take into account the take-back program, refurbishment, repairing, remanufacturing, and upcycling and recycling components of the original product. So it's, again, looking at it as the circular process, enabling that loop back to the actual company who made the product in the first place. And this sort of business transformation cannot happen with going outside the box and rethinking on how we do business today, on how we use and make products. So there's a huge need for innovation and thinking outside the box and driving creative new solutions forward. And one of these could be servitization, which is the shift from just producing and selling a product to actually producing and selling a service. And this aligns also with some of the customer's expectations to no longer just wanting to buy and own a product, but being more interested in what the product itself can actually offer and deliver. And this is an example here from Rolls-Royce, who embedded circular business models in their operations. And this is a specific example for their jet engines, for which they have created this servitization model. So basically, Rolls-Royce receives a payment based on the number of flight hours, provides maintenance and servicing of these jet engines to prolong their service life, while at the end of the serviceable life, they will recuperate the jet engines and recycle and recover materials, reuse them for other applications, or see what can be refurbished or further recycled or upcycled. So it's kind of a nice model for moving away from the traditional making, selling product, and then it's in the hand of the customers, and they have to deal with the end of life disposal and things like that. It really goes away from this linear approach and makes it a circular business and economic model. Now, looking at it again a bit more from the product side, in terms of the raw materials we use, the manufacturing steps we take, but then also how we deal with waste and the end of life. It's about thinking really about the product stewardship. It's thinking about the type of materials we use, the resources we use, assessing, understanding environmental impacts products can generate along their whole life cycle, and thinking about labels and certifications to designate products as sustainable, recyclable, and different labels. So, and really embedding those 3 design principles per the Ellen MacArthur Foundation: of eliminating waste, circulating, keeping products, materials in circulation, and regenerating resources. So I wanted to talk about just one example today here a little bit about recyclability from the US lens. So this is specifically for plastics and looking at it from the Association of Plastic Recyclers. Recyclability is really not just defined by the material itself or the product itself, but we have seen from Josefina's presentation that there are significant challenges inherent to making recycling happen. And it's about the whole process and the whole chain of the recyclability and this recycling process itself. A lot of consumers actually don't have access to collection systems, which is really that first step. Then we also need to ensure there is sorting processes. There are technologies in place that can help sort what's being collected, which usually is this big mass of stuff that might have contamination, there might be things mixed in. So really having these sophisticated sorting mechanisms is a key enabler for recyclability. And then of course, it's about that reprocessing, this either recycling or upcycling process, then can create new feedstock materials to create new products from these waste plastic materials. And it's also about creating a market value for these waste materials, either through inherently embedding a value or supporting it through legislative programs and mandates. Coming back to the collection piece and the actual access and openness of people to engage in the recycling process, this is a map of the different states in the US, and you can see in the different colors that we have quite a wide spread in terms of whether people have access to recycling and actually doing recycling if they have access. So the yellow is cannot recycle, and you can see there's quite a big spread here in a lot of different states where there is actually no recycling station or service, either curbside pickup or drop-off locations available for households and consumers. But then we also have the situation that we need to drive more education and awareness about the availability of recycling, the benefits, and tying it up to the benefit of economies and local communities in reducing waste and providing less pollution in the longer term. Last but not least, in this bucket, I mentioned a little bit, it's about the marketing, it's kind of engaging your consumers. So there are also claims that can be made in terms of recyclability. In the US, these are handled by the Federal Trade Commission's Green Guides, which specify on when and where products can be marketed as recyclable. For recyclability to be claimed, the product or package will need to be collected, separated, and recovered, and then further processed through an established recycling program. So now these green guides are not a binding law, it's not a regulation, it's more of a guiding framework, but they can nonetheless be used to hold organizations and companies accountable for making misleading claims and creating consumer deception. So it's a first step in getting more transparency, more accountability for companies to own and to clearly disclose what they're doing with the materials and what their products have in terms of recycled content and what they can be further recycled, whether that's a feature of that product. So it's a first step. But we're seeing more and more of these frameworks that are voluntary, but now shifting more and more to actually mandatory reporting and regulations that are emerging on different things to hold organizations more accountable, to disclose publicly environmental performance, not just financial performance, but also the ESG performance of companies. So it's about creating governance for companies and transparency and accountability. So with that, I'll go a little bit deeper into the mandatory reporting and regulations landscape, again, more with a lens from the EU side and the US side. Starting on the EU side, we have the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, or CSRD. It's one of the most extensive reporting requirements for organizations to report out on impacts, risks, opportunities, metrics, and targets for material ESG, environmental, social, and governance issues. Companies need to do a double materiality assessment to see how their operations and their value chain impact communities and sustainability matters, but also what financial impact climate change can have on their own operations. And all the sustainability matters that come out as material based on this double materiality assessment will need to be reported. So it's kind of, in addition to financial reporting, it's the disclosure of a company's ESG performance. There are different requirements, different standards, different effective dates. It depends on the type of entity and can get quite complex. But major and very large organizations will need to start reporting as of this year, 2024. And then there's a gradual rollout depending on the size of organizations and companies. And the CSRD doesn't just impact companies based in the EU, but it also impacts US companies and international companies with revenue and or operations in the EU.
Sorry to interrupt you. Your slides just got frozen at the slide number 13. Now, yes, will now change. Just to let you know that.
It is froze? Which do you see the overview?
No, now it's okay. Now it's okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Go on.
Sorry
Sorry
about
for
that.
the interruption. Sorry.
No. Thank you for that. All right. Just keep me posted if it gets stuck again. On the American side, we have the SEC climate rule, which is currently paused and put on hold as it faces several legal challenges. But this rule would actually require reporting aligned with TCFD, including climate governance, risk management strategies, but also greenhouse gas emissions for Scope 1 and 2. And then we have a whole set of rules, climate rules in California, California being one of the more progressive states in the US in terms of sustainability reporting regulations. These rules have been signed into effect actually just a month or so ago, and they will require reporting of Scope 1, 2, and 3 corporate greenhouse gas emissions for all companies in scope, but also reporting climate risk related management processes, and also the reporting of sale and use of renewable energy certificates and plans on how to move to net zero. So this is kind of overarching. We talked a little bit about sustainability really being that overarching aspect, and then circularity being a big enabler to move to a sustainable future. So I want to take a couple minutes here to look at regulations that are emerging or are already there that focus specifically on circularity, resource use, and sustainable product design. And I hope the slide moves forward. And you can see a very busy slide here, so we'll break it down as we walk through the different areas here. So overarching, probably the most advanced, looking at it from an EU and US lens, is the EU side. We have the EU Green Deal, which targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and has been setting very ambitious climate goals. It also looks at manufacturing to drive change there in terms of renewable energy procurement and supply chain engagement. And it also has a lens on products to drive design considerations into product development from a durability, reusability, repairability, and recyclability point of view. And I mentioned the EU CSRD. So again, beginning this year, certain businesses will need to start reporting their environmental and social activities and will be subject to external audits. And the CSRD also includes requirements for the disclosure of resource use and circularity-related sustainability matters. And we'll dive a little bit deeper into what that actually means and how granular this actually gets. But just as another high level, this is not an exhaustive list, it's just a couple of examples of legislations or proposed bills that are in place or being considered as we look at the value chain from the cradle to gate. So the upstream sourcing of raw materials to then manufacture the product, to package it, and then transport it out to the consumer, customer, or other businesses. Starting with the actual materials, the product design, we have the EU's Eco-Design for Sustainable Products regulation, which sets eco-design rules for specific product groups and also implements a ban on the destruction of unsold products, specifically unsold textiles and footwear. It also mandates a product passport to create more transparency for consumers so they can make more informed decisions. On the manufacturing side, we have different initiatives, different acts, different disclosures that are kind of embedded across different frameworks. So I'm not going to go too much into detail here, but I want to highlight the EU's Zero Pollution Action Plan, which is part of the EU's Green Deal and focuses on reducing pollution, creating a toxic-free environment, and includes policy areas around industrial emissions, chemicals, microplastics, and water usage, to really tackle the manufacturing aspects as well. On the packaging side, we have the EU Packaging and Waste Directive, which would set requirements for restricting, for instance, certain chemicals of concern in packaging, mandating packaging to be designed for recyclability, and also have packaging, especially for plastics, having a set level of recycled content. On the US side, again, looking more at California, we have the Plastic Pollution Prevention and Packaging Producer Responsibility Act, which is a mouthful. This will, by 2027, require producers to have an approved plan for reducing the resources they use, providing collection and processing methods and technologies, and recycling of all plastic packaging materials, in order to be still able to sell and offer their products in the market. Then we have the Extended Producer Responsibility, or EPR, which is a policy approach that holds producers accountable for their products across the whole product's life cycle. So thinking about the initial upstream stages of the product design, but then also the downstream side, and holistically looking at all the different environmental impacts that come with the product they're making and selling. California has an advanced program here already that's overseen by Cal Recycle, and there have been different EPR bills also introduced in other states at the beginning of this year, as there is a drive forward into that area. So that's kind of that upstream part, the cradle to gate, but now we need to ship the products to the customers, to the consumers. So there are also considerations in cutting emissions across transportation logistics, a big emphasis on the shipping industry through different organizations and systems that are being considered. But I want to spend the last couple of minutes to dive a little bit deeper into the CSRD. I think because I think it's a really unique framework on disclosure, or mandatory disclosure framework. It's one of the, I would say, more detailed, more advanced reporting frameworks, if you look at it, comparing EU and US, that requires a wide array of sustainability-related matters for companies to disclose. And it's one of the first set of regulations that also includes mandatory reporting for circularity-related topics. So it's kind of an interesting step forward to really embed this aspect as well in the company's performance. Now, the CSRD has a whole range of standards and requirements that are kind of regrouped under the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, or ESRS, that lay out all the requirements and different steps that need to be considered, from the initial assessments, the processes, the policies and actions that companies need to take, and the type of metrics and targets they have to set. Again, I mentioned the CSRD is one of the first sets of regulations that includes reporting on resource use and circularity economy, and it's the ESRS E5 that specifically defines the requirements for the disclosure of resource use and circularity-related sustainability matters. And it drives companies to take into consideration the whole product life cycle, from the resource extraction to how they dispose of waste, to making that shift happen away from the traditional take, make, waste linear approach to a circular system aspect. However, and we've seen this in Josefina's and Agustina's presentation, circularity doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It is closely linked to other sustainability matters. And when reporting on circularity and resource use, organizations also need to take into account reporting requirements for other areas, such as climate change, for instance, water resources, biodiversity, and also the impact on communities. All right, this is another very busy slide, but it kind of aims at showing the complexity of what this actually means for organizations when they have to report on resource use and circularity under the CSRD, if this is a material sustainability matter for that organization. So on the one side, they have to consider all the impacts, risks, and opportunities that are inherent to resource use, circular economy, to their organization. They have to disclose the processes that they are using, on how they assess and identify these areas of impact, risk, and opportunity related to resource use, resource efficiency, the different flow of materials and waste in their operations and value chain. Companies can use different methods to do this assessment, from classic life cycle assessment to standard corporate greenhouse gas emission accounting principles to materiality assessments, material flow analysis, and other methods. Then organizations are held accountable to put policies in place to assess, identify, and remediate those material impacts, risks, and opportunities. And they have to disclose which actions and resources they are putting in place to enable those policies and enable meeting the targets that they're setting. The targets should actually be preferably set in absolute values. So companies need to think about setting specific targets and metrics around sourcing practices, secondary raw materials over virgin raw materials, reducing the use of certain materials, critical materials, what processes they're putting in place for end-of-life treatment, material recovery, and how they approach the design of their materials in the first place. And then I think also an interesting concept is to look at waste generation reduction in the first place as a priority versus thinking only afterwards about waste treatment and recovery. And then it goes really detailed into disclosing the upstream materials a company purchases, disclosing the actual total weight of materials and products used in their operations and upstream value chain, disclosing if there's a percentage of biological materials and biofuels, with providing the certification to that. And then on the downstream side, it's about disclosing which products the organization is selling have been designed based on the circular economy principles, what their durability and repairability is, how much percent recyclable content is included, and what the company is doing with the waste generated, how much is recovered, how much is going to landfill and other waste management processes compared to recycling. So you can see this is really granular. It's getting really detailed. And I mean, it seems like a big burden on companies to actually make this reporting happen. So we can see that circularity is really becoming an integral part of a company's sustainability journey through these various regulations and policies, going beyond the voluntary schemes to mandatory reporting, in addition to meeting expectations from stakeholders, investors, consumers, for companies being accountable for the product design, the end of life, the resource use overall. So it seems like a big beast of reporting, a big challenge. So it's really essential that companies are getting ready, are setting up the resources, processes in place to be able to report on those mandatory reporting schemes on materiality and circularity related matters. However, just want to mention again also here, it's also a big opportunity for businesses. If we can embrace moving and challenging our business as usual, create new business models, embrace these circularity concepts, there is a huge opportunity for businesses to increase their resource efficiencies, to reduce costs in the long run, to reduce waste management constraints, and create resiliency against supply chain dependencies and material resourcing constraints. So coming back to what I mentioned at the beginning, it's really creating the sustainable performance by joining the sustainability impact with the commercial impact by creating business performance and sustainable performance overall. Thank you.